Venezuela. It's enough to make your head spin, isn't it? Hello there. Welcome to the Harley Carnes podcast, Harley on the Headlines. Really glad you're there. Quick reminder as we get started to please help spread the word. You know how to do it. Little question about what kicks off today, huh? I don't think any of us saw this coming in Venezuela. Nicolas Maduro sure didn't. 1 minute he's going about his usual drug smuggling, cartel running, murderous dictator business. And the next, he's trying to run down the hall to his safe room, only to be intercepted by Delta Force that seemed to come out of nowhere. First, the lights went out in Caracas, and then his whole world shrank to wherever he stood wearing handcuffs. Doing that did the world a solid, for sure, like arresting Manuel Noriega on the same kinds of charges and restoring some order in Panama. Donald Trump has done the world a favor. The next big question, of course, is what's next? President Trump says the U.S. is going to run Venezuela for a while. Now, what that means is he plans to give the Venezuelans a chance to have a freer country again with a representative government, not a dictator in charge. That is not going to happen overnight because the people who Maduro leaves behind in Caracas are just like he was. They're not good for anybody, only for themselves. Now, here's an easy prediction. Most of them will stand straight and swear allegiance to freedom. That they would be full of beans for sure if they do that, just playing for time and for the U.S. to either pull out or to foolishly rebuild their oil infrastructure for them and hand them more billions. No one is expecting that to happen. I mean, one has to precede the other. The oil companies that built Venezuela's oil empire, American oil companies, naturally can't go back in unless they are sure of a stable democratic government first. Otherwise, the same thing will happen all over again. They'll take it away from them. So what happens next? Well, that is clearly up to the crooks who run Venezuela right now. They can resign and save their skins. They can come to Jesus and join the side of right. They can try to fight. They can try to pretend to do the right thing and hope to outsmart Trump and Rubio and Bondi and Hegseth. Everyone likes to be in the predictions business. American intelligence services are not in that business. They are in the likelihoods business. What are the circumstances on the ground? Who are the players? What do we know about them and their proclivities? What are they likely to do? What is the list of possible reactions and actions? Here, Mr. President, this is how we read it. The military is in the scenario business. The smart people at the Pentagon, and there are some brilliant folks there, they look at the same information and they come up with predictions and potentialities. Then they build what if then scenarios around each of them. What if they do this? What can we do then? What should we do to succeed? And what can we do with our people, equipment, and capabilities to succeed, to accomplish whatever the mission may be? And these scenario efforts are comprehensive. After they imagine and make plans for everything they can foresee, they try to come up with things that would come out of left field that they can't foresee, and then make plans for that too. What if Russia tries to intervene? What if China does? What if China decides to use our attention on Venezuela as a chance to take over Taiwan? It is always a very complicated world. Fortunately, I'm not in the prediction or the scenario business. But if I were in charge of Colombia, I would think seriously about joining the freer nations of the world, and I would think seriously about putting the fortune I've already made in Switzerland or a secure bank somewhere else and make a deal with Mr. Trump to help make war on the cartels. He has directly suggested to Colombia that they join the side of right or else. Now, Colombia probably has a little bit of time. Not much, but some. The president in Bogota, Gustavo Petro, has called the arrest of Maduro a kidnapping. That doesn't look good, not for him, anyway. Worth noting briefly that among those who fought against Americans when we moved in were Cuban soldiers. 32 of them died. That's Havana's number. So there is that to think about, too. President Trump told reporters on Air Force One, by the way, he thinks Cuba is close to failing and falling, not because of any plan to attack, but because it was Venezuelan money that was propping up the government in Havana. Now that money and that oil is done. The new Venezuela will be in the business of selling oil, but the blockade continues and shipments to Cuba won't be happening. If I were in charge in Panama, I'd find the keys to the locks and hand them over to Hegseth and Company. Jimmy Carter, like a dunce, gave the canal to Panama, even though we built it and we ran it, even though we did that because it was crucial to American interests and influence in this hemisphere. So we deposed the dictator who had emerged from that and ran things for a little while, then handed it back to Panama. And now China has built major facilities on each end of the canal and wants to effectively take it over. This is obviously a threat to American interests. Trump has said he will do something about that. He tends to do what he says. Meanwhile, back to Venezuela. Maduro is due in court for his first appearance in New York. His future is predictable. Delcy Rodriguez has been sworn in as president of Venezuela. She may not last as long as a hot cup of coffee. It's up to her. President Trump sent her a message. Do what's right. She has said she is willing to cooperate with the U.S. By the way, Secretary of State Marco Rubio says the president's assertion that the U.S. is going to run Venezuela refers to a plan to control the country with pressure to force major shifts in policy. President Rodriguez says she's down with that, within the bounds of international law. Now, those comments can be translated into, don't expect this to be done in a week. Venezuela has a lot of cleaning up to do. They are huge drug traffickers, mostly to Europe. They have gangs, street gangs, that run much of the streets of the country. Insurgent groups like FARC and ELN are persistent. And Rubio says they have to go. Rooting them out sounds a lot like Vietnam. Hezbollah and Iran have terrorist training facilities in Venezuela. All of that has to go. Like I said, it can't be done in a week, but it does need to be done. As for the magpies on the far left in this country, once again, their TDS is showing. No, Trump did not need permission from Congress to go get Maduro. Neither did Bill Clinton when he went after Slobodan Milosevic in Bosnia and made war there. He didn't ask. Republicans in Congress didn't complain either. George H.W. Bush didn't ask for permission before going to get Manuel Noriega. Democrats didn't complain about that either, because Bush wasn't named Trump. And no, the Pentagon and the FBI wouldn't advise leaders of Congress ahead of time because the Democrats can't keep their mouths shut about dinner, much less anything important. Telling Democrats might very well have gotten some Americans killed. Now, longer term, U.S. intervention in Venezuela is probably not just the province of the executive branch, meaning President Trump and company. Congress probably will have a say in it and should. In fact, Congress has the power anyway because Congress controls the budget. And though they don't seem to be able to agree on very much when it comes to spending, all of a sudden it may be easy for the left in Congress to start talking about not wasting money in a nation-building exercise in Venezuela. They'd be full of crap on that because fact is the U.S. will profit from getting a big share of the oil industry we developed in Venezuela again, but that won't keep Democrats from saying it and trying to protect their socialist friends. Hats off to our allies in the fight against Islamist terrorism. ISIS had a huge underground storage facility for weapons and bombs and explosives. I say had because British and French forces just blew it up. Way to go. Now, this is not a name we know, but Ahn Sung-Ki was household in Korea, one of the biggest actors in Korean cinema, pretty much unknown in Hollywood. He just died at the age of 74 of complications from choking on food a few days ago. He was a really big deal in Korea, a career of more than 60 years. He was in something like 140 movies and was known as Nation's Actor. Ahn Sung-Ki will long be remembered in South Korea. That was some football game last night. Baltimore Ravens and the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Ravens were heavily favored, but the Steelers had Aaron Rodgers, and Pittsburgh managed to get ahead, but they were staring defeat in the face in the final moments. All Baltimore needed was a field goal from kicker Tyler Loop from walk-off distance, and he missed it wide right. Pittsburgh hosts Houston next Monday night for the wild card. There will be an NTSB investigation, but there is little mystery in the crash of a helicopter at a remote canyon in Arizona, which killed an experienced pilot and 3 nieces. It was wedding day, and the pilot was taking his visiting nieces for a sightseeing flight in Pinal County. A slack line was strung between 2 points. Now, it can be used like a high wire for walking. It can be a strap between 2 trees, 2 feet off the ground, or a slack line can be a strap between canyons. Illegal as hell without permits, and letting people know about it so that others don't crawl across it, fall off of it, or fly into it. We don't know who put up the line or when, but that pilot, who had flown the area many times and who owned several helicopters, didn't see it, and it sliced the rotor right off the helicopter. People saw it happen. The chopper fell to the floor of the canyon, and everyone died. Zoning out is real. Research at the Sorbonne shows it is possible for your conscious mind to take a break, short one, and to just switch off for a few moments. You are awake, your eyes see, but your brain isn't paying attention. You have zoned out. Now, here's the surprise. It happens a lot more than you'd think. Our minds wander. We start thinking of other things than what we're doing or trying to do. That's different. Happens a lot, 35% of us. But about half that often, the mind can go briefly blank. And technically speaking, it's almost the opposite of mind wandering. That's when your brain is too busy. Blanking is, well, it's just like it sounds like. Fortunately, it doesn't last long. Oh, yeah. I wasn't blanking, I was just pretending. Deep fakes are getting better and better and more common. Here are some numbers. In 2023, there were roughly 500,000 deep fakes on the internet in some form or fashion. Last year, in 25, just 2 years later, 8 million. That's exponential growth in how often fakery is used. Now, what's next, according to the experts, is a time soon when you won't be able to tell the difference between real and fake. There are little telltales today. They won't be visible soon, and it'll take cryptographic and forensic investigations to figure out the difference. Will people be deceived? You could bet on that. Major retailers are already being hit by more than 1,000 AI-generated scam calls every day. And synthetic voices can already be indistinguishable from the real thing. I can't even imagine how many dumbass, bogus phone calls I get every day, you know. I just don't answer them. I mean, I just don't. A good buddy of mine, a long time ago, he said to me, remember when caller ID first came out? When caller ID came out and you could see, you know, who was calling, he said, at long last, an asshole filter. That's exactly what it is, you know. So we need really good ones to root out, filter out, if you will, the AI fakes. Lastly, this had to happen. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, who ran for vice president with Kamala Harris, is done. His political career is in ashes in Minnesota for a lot of reasons, largely because of the multi-billion-dollar Somali fraud scandal that has rocked his administration. He has either been asleep at the switch or grossly ineffective. Got to be one or the other. Either way, it is not politically survivable. He has pulled out of his re-election race. Polar bear clubs are all over the country. When it's cold enough to make your eyes pop jumping into the water, in Bellingham, Washington, actually the tiny town of Birch Bay, looks like a Guinness record. 4,917 people in their swimsuits all ran into the frigid Pacific at the same time. It smashed the previous record of about half that number in Norway. Now, to make the record book, you need to stay in the water for a minimum of 6 minutes. Not seconds, minutes. Man, they could definitely count me out. Thank you today for joining. I appreciate it. This podcast and Harley on the Headlines and so forth. We're on several platforms, and the podcast is growing. I appreciate your help. I really cannot do it without you. So please like, follow, subscribe, share the link with people who follow you. Share it with anybody. I'd appreciate it. I'm Harley Carnes. Let's do this again real soon, all right?